Welcome, this is British National Party Television reporting from Burnley, Lancashire. Now, when I was a young man, there was a famous comedian called Max Bygraves, and he always used to begin his routine by saying, "I want to tell you a story." Well, I want to tell you a story, but the story I'm going to tell you is not that funny. My story begins on the 6th of January this year in a rundown flat in the middle of Burnley over there, where a career criminal called Ben Young received 3 visitors. One of these visitors he knew very well because he shared a cell with him in prison. The other 2 visitors were what the police describe as Asian men. Now, these 3 visitors put a proposition to Ben. They said they'd pay him £1,000 to burn down a Spar shop. Ben considered their thing and thought it was adequate payment for his professional services and agreed. He was immediately driven from the flat by the 2 Asian men, firstly to a garage where they bought a gallon of fuel, and then to the spot I'm standing in now. When they got here, Ben got out the car and he actually went in the shop, and he discovered that there were 2 workers there who were cashing up at the time. So he knew the property was occupied, but this didn't deter him in any way. He went to the rear of the shop, where his 2 accomplices helped him onto the roof. He went some distance up the roof, and then he knelt down and used a chisel to prise open one of the roofing tiles. He then poured the petrol into the hole he'd made. He lit a piece of tissue and threw that in after the petrol. Once he was happy that he'd caused a conflagration, he returned to the edge of the roof, only to discover to his horror that his accomplices had deserted him. At this point, panic and terror gripped the heart of Ben Young, and he started rushing round the roof screaming, "Help, help, I'm going to die, I'm going to die, I'm going to die." Now, his screams were heard by the 2 workers who came out. They saw Ben on the roof, they saw the smoke, and they immediately called the emergency services. The fire engine was here within minutes and was here in time to save Ben's life. Unfortunately, they did not manage to save the Spar shop, which was burnt to the ground. Now, as soon as the dust had settled, everybody in the area started asking, well, who would want to burn down a Spar shop? Well, apparently Ben has stated that the person behind the scam was a Muslim shopkeeper from just up the road here, who was fed up with the local community doing all their shopping in the Spar shop and not getting their groceries from him. So he decided to eliminate the competition by burning down the shop. Now, it has to be stated at this stage that these are just allegations, because the police have totally failed to bring anybody else to book for this particular crime. But most of the people in this area believe Ben's story. They think it was the Muslim who was behind the arson attack. Now, I'm sure there are viewers at this stage who are saying, God, those people in Lancashire, those people in Burnley, they're always blaming the Muslims for everything, even when they don't have any proper proof. But I would ask those people not to rush to judgment about Burnley and the people here, because you have to consider the environment in which we all live. The indigenous people of Burnley are under constant attack from members of the Muslim colony here. One particular sort of attack, which is very common, is that Muslims will identify a property they wish to acquire. They will then subject the owner of that property to a vicious campaign of intimidation, harassment and abuse and vandalism, until the owner is that fed up or that scared, he'll sell the property at a knockdown price just to get away from the problem. The real underlying problem, though, is that victims of this sort of attack are unlikely to report it to the police. This is because they say that the police will not do anything about it, like they've not done much about this job, and it could result in reprisal attacks from the Muslims. And I personally know that this is the case. It is not many weeks since a personal friend of mine who lives in Nelson, just up the valley from here, has been the victim of a particularly vicious attack by Muslims. Her son fell out with the Muslim gang at school. Within days, this gang had turned up on the doorstep, and the leader of the gang subjected her on her own doorstep to a tirade of abuse where he threatened to cut off her son's head if she didn't get a grip of him. And meanwhile, the other members of the gang were jumping up and down on a car, causing thousands of pounds worth of damage and making it a virtual write-off. And yet this woman absolutely refuses to go to the police. She says it'll be pointless to do so because the police won't do anything about it, and all that's likely to happen is that she'll get another visit from the Muslim gang. Also, it's worth bearing in mind that the people of Burnley have been for years the victims of a particularly nasty Muslim paedophile cartel that has been grooming young girls, drugging them, gang raping them, and not just that, but subjecting them to levels of actual physical torture. It's also got to be remembered the whole valley, the whole Ribble Valley, is flooded with heroin, and everybody knows that this heroin comes from the Muslim colony. There are also areas of Burnley, like there are areas of Blackburn and Nelson and Preston, where indigenous people dare not go during the day, never mind at night, because they know if they do, they will be attacked, abused and humiliated. And it's also worth remembering that it's not many years since this whole area erupted in the riots, where the Muslims went on the rampage, burning cars, smashing shop windows, attacking the police with sticks and brickbats and what have you, and beating people up on the street side and generally terrorising the whole area. So people in Burnley have good reason to be suspicious of the Muslim colony here. But the real cause of our problem lies with the inaction of the authorities. The situation has been likened to a child with negligent parents. Imagine a situation where a young lad goes to his mother and goes, "Mum, Mum, that horrible man next door is doing terrible things to me in the garden shed." And all she says is, "Shush, shush, what you're saying is inflammatory. What you're saying will cause a scene, you'll give the whole area a bad name. Now shush and go away, I don't want to hear any more about it." Well, that is the attitude the people of Burnley get when they report these attacks to the police. And the reason we are making this video is as a sort of plea to those in authority to please listen to our complaints, and then we can rebuild our community in much the same way as this Spar shop is being rebuilt. Thank you for listening.